What's good, everybody? If you're watching this, today is Saturday, an unorthodox day, but nonetheless, let's get right to it. Alright, so I perfectly understand that I'm behind schedule, and in the cause of being responsible, I do want to first acknowledge that and not let that take over the whole dialect of the video. I want to first say, if you do enjoy this video, please leave a like, and furthermore, just please feel free to subscribe to continue the journey alongside me, and be sure to click the bell if you would like to receive those notifications. Just as an additional note, I just want to also say that there should also be a card popping up any second now. That card is to the other videos of my content. If you're first checking this out, I am the PsychoTutor, and today we're talking about depression. Now, I'm taking the authentic route, and I do want to also add that this is my, I believe, third take at this. The first attempt was too dark. Second attempt did not flow with my actual words. I don't know what the heck happened with it, but yeah, did not work out. Third time's a charm, and we'll make sure this works, because if it didn't, then I probably would not be here. I do want to first give a premise to the things that I'm going to be advising. One thing is, perception is reality. I see that because it is not necessarily the world that we experience. It is the perception of what we live through that creates our world. Without that perception, then essentially there is nothing. We live in a world in which our viewpoints are the foundation of what we live by on a day-to-day basis. Same for our parents, same for the generation before us. So that is the first premise. The second premise is, due to reality being perception, that everything that we live by is according to how we want to perceive it, no matter the events that goes by. For example, if you was to get slapped in the face right now by somebody random, like so, guess what? You allow yourself to get mad. It's not the slap that has pissed you off. You have commanded your emotions to get mad. Not saying the slap is justifiable. I'm just saying, hypothetically, in a situation where you are to get slapped, or if I was to get slapped and we was to find ourselves getting pretty pissed off, then it's not necessarily the slap itself. It's the fact that the meaning of the slap has pissed us off. I mean, I'm pretty sure that in some cultures, you could get slapped, and depending on the person who slapped you, you will probably feel honored. The method that I've come about, I call it mental reconditioning. I've performed it on myself twice in my life. Specifically, the last time in which I've done it, what I do is I acknowledge a behavior in which I want to exhibit that may allow me to exit the mental situation that is causing me trauma or causing me stress. Once I acknowledge the behavior that I want, then I mimic that behavior after learning to understand it. In my context, I was in an illegitimate relationship that was not official, and I wanted to achieve more. In that situation, I had an unhealthy attachment. From the unhealthy attachment, then I started thinking about behaviors that could be exhibited that would potentially allow me to break from that attachment. What I have developed in my mind was psychopaths and sociopaths. I was thinking in my mind that one, if not both of those individual characteristics, would not care whatsoever about that individual or that individual's problems. As a result of thinking of that, I have come to the conclusion that I would like to mimic that behavior after I have researched the differences between those two. So once I've researched the differences between those two, and I've learned to differentiate between the two, then I've made my decision. Okay, I would like to exhibit more of the sociopath. Psychopaths don't have a moral compass, and I would like to remain to keep that. I don't want to learn how to lose my conscience. It's pretty dangerous. So once I have learned that, I've taken upon the approach of every time I was around that person, no matter what was going on, I will still be a person, I will still be myself, but I changed the nature of myself to being towards more of my careless self, mimicking that of the characteristics read and researched and watched from that of a sociopath. After going about that particular way, eventually I've done it so long to where I started becoming that character in a sense naturally. It became naturally an extent of who I am, which is very important that we acknowledge the targeted behavior is only the targeted behavior and nothing more. because we can essentially become somebody else or another form of ourselves that we may originally not approve of. So once I've taken upon that approach and I've changed who I am essentially into another person or a more careless version of myself, then guess what? I've allowed myself the freedom to break from that attachment. Now, on a psychological approach, there's something called classical and operant conditioning. Classical conditioning is learning or teaching an organism or person how to change from an unconditioned response to a conditioned response. For example, if you got a dog and you want to tell the dog it's time to eat, the unconditioned response is, if they see food, their unconditioned response is to immediately run. Their tongue starts salivating and they're ready to eat. On the other hand, if you start ringing a bell before you show them the food, over time, by continually repeating that particular process, then you create the open connection that for each time you ring the bell, the dog automatically runs with the tongue salivating because they know it's time to eat. So yeah, that's that good stuff. So from there, that's the nitty-gritty specifics of that particular habit. Now on operant conditioning, it's the idea of changing a behavior based off whether you want a targeted behavior to increase or decrease. For example, there are 4 different categories within this. We have positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. Reinforcement is the idea of increasing a behavior. Punishment is the idea of decreasing a behavior. On the other hand, we have the definitions of positive and negative. Positive is the idea of adding something to the scenario for the targeted result to change. And we also have the idea of negative, which is the idea of removing something to cause the targeted behavior to change. So, for example, if we have positive reinforcement, then that will mean we will want to add something to the situation to increase the targeted behavior. An example, if we wanted our child to bring home good grades and bring it home more abundantly, then the way we would do that is we could offer them a toy for every A. So it's like, okay, we're adding a toy for every A, and as a result, basically, we give them the candy, positive reinforcement. Let's say on the other end of the spectrum, we have negative punishment. If we were to break it down how we defined it previously, negative punishment would be looked at as removing something from the scenario to decrease a behavior that is unwanted. So let's say if a child gets into a fight and we want them to stop fighting, then we will say, we can remove each item of your lunch for each time that you cause a physical altercation. They have, let's say in this scenario, they have 3 items, and for each time they do it, we continually remove something. Then the removing of the food is the negative, and the intent to decrease the altercations or the behavior that causes the altercations, that is the punishment. So those are just short examples of how I looked at procedures that could cause behavioral changes. And in my scenario, it could be looked at from more than one different approach, depending on how you want to look at it. And the way I looked at it, I told myself that, okay, each time I'm around this particular woman, or however you may want to refer to the person, in that scenario, I would want to increase my behavior pertaining to showing less emotion or showing less care, but at least pretending until it becomes natural. And for each time I do so, then I'm allowing myself to have an extra dessert or something that could be treated as additional validation that I'm doing a good deed towards the particular situation. And by doing that, I allowed myself to change my behavior and escape from what would normally be viewed as an entrapment. After getting past what is viewed as an entrapment, then I basically earn what is my own freedom, essentially. And after that, the only last part of the procedure that I've taught myself to prevent myself from ever entering depression again, once I've escaped it, is to always follow through positivity and optimism with every single day. So every single day, I always tell myself, based off the last video, if you was to look at Let's Talk episode 3, I talk about every day that I wake up is a good day. And to elaborate, I mean specifically, every day that I wake up and I'm still allowed to have my physical functions, maintain my important possessions that allow me to progress towards the next goal or phase of my life every single day, despite my own perceptions or issues that may be going on. It's a good day. And that's pretty much the gist of it. By continually speaking positivity into my life, I'm continually able to reciprocate that, not only onto others, but to have it received upon me as well. And that's pretty much the conclusion of how I've defeated depression. And that's what makes every single day a fun day. Every single day is a challenging day, one way or another. Of course, there's a possibility that I could endure it again, but I don't speak that into my life because I don't intend for it to re-enter my life. And that's the end of it. I haven't been depressed, or I haven't went through significant stress for give or take 2 years now. And I've watched some people go through quite the stressful things, and I have dealt with things that I consider stressful. That is particularly how I've defeated it. And I wish the same for everyone else. Much like I've learned from the rappers that I listen to, Logic, peace, love, and positivity, everybody take it easy. Peace.